Hello. So as mentioned earlier, we will talk about the unexpected things. So this term unknown unknowns, it was coined by Donald Rumsfeld, famously in his speech to at the United States Department of Defense briefing in February 2002. It was in the response of the lack of evidence linking the government of Iraq to the supply of weapons of mass destruction to the terrorist groups. So Donald Rumsfeld mentioned there this sort of things that we know, known knowns, these things that we know that we don't know. So there's known unknowns, but really what is interesting and really what keeps us awake at night is this unknown unknowns. So the things we don't know about and that we don't even know that we don't know about. So if we were to visualize this concept, and this is something somehow the scientific way of analyzing this response, this term is actually not something that Donald Rumsfeld himself invented. It is well known and utilized when it comes to incident response planning and also in other business contexts when it comes to getting ready for things that may be unexpected and may happen in the future. So the thing that, for instance, he didn't highlight it was this unknown known. So that the things that perhaps others know, but we don't know about, or we don't know about ourselves. And this concept sort of is based on the psychological term of Joharu Window. It was created around 1955. It actually is a way to classify the exercise was to classify the adjectives from a list to the things that we are, like how we would like to describe ourselves or how others would like to describe us, and sort of the things that we and others who were describing us agreed were ending up in this upper left quadrant of arena, or sometimes called also as open quadrant. So these were the adjectives that we decided we know about ourselves, how we would like to describe ourselves, and adjectives that others described us with. There is this blind spot. So the things, this unknown knowns, that the things that we that how others would like to describe us. So we don't know about ourselves, but others describe us, and this is ending up in this blind spot quadrant. There is the facet where we describe ourselves, but no one else describes us with, and this unknown quadrant. So things that either us nor neither us nor anyone else described us with. And these are these things that, well, it's unknown whether we are such people or not. So these are these things that this unknown unknowns. This is somehow how Donald Rumsfeld in his speech he arrived at this classification. And if we were looking in the past, this sort of way of thinking is also described as black swans. So these are these events described also by Nassim Taleb in his books, and also developed he developed this concept over the years. So these are these really big events that nothing else somehow unpredicted. There was no other precedent things in history that was to the similar extent. They have really extreme impact. They're very impactful when it comes to whatever things that are impacted by them, and how sort of big chaos they create when they occur. And also there tend to be this psychological bias that actually afterwards, on the hindsight, when we think about them, we tend to think that, oh, how we couldn't predict that, right? And this is something that really is on the hindsight, it's easy to explain them. There is sort of like list of events, linked list of events that are perhaps leading to this outlier, but it's always easy to speak on the hindsight and explain them as such. So looking at last year, apart from the coronavirus pandemic, the really big event in the cybersecurity world was this SolarWinds cyber attack that basically was publicized in December of last year. The type of supply chain attack. So rather than attacking a specific company, the adversaries here focused on attacking SolarWinds, and their method of basically pushing software updates to the companies that were utilizing their software. Into a bit more details, well, this slide is pretty detailed. It's Microsoft's way of attempting to explain this attack, but in a nutshell, what adversaries did was that they somehow compromised the system of delivering software updates of one of the SolarWinds products, most widely used Orion software. And thanks to that, whoever was updating their SolarWinds software, Orion software, basically from sometime in 2019 to 2020, when this attack was publicized, was affected by the malicious version of the software update. What this package was doing was first trying to see and do some evasion techniques that malware can do to see if they're really acting in a target network. They were gathering info and obviously launching the command and control center. So sort of typical attack that we see, typical sort of kill chain of a security attack that we've seen in the past. But somehow it was really unexpected that it could happen on such a scale, attacking more than 18,000 customers of SolarWinds. Among the customers, apart from various United States agencies, government agencies, there were also security companies like FireEye, who actually also described the breach pretty well, and they did analysis of the malware package that was delivered. And more interestingly, I think from the recent developments and sort of a link to coronavirus pandemic is that also the AstraZeneca company developing the vaccine was also affected by this hack. Also, another aspect is that the software updates were delivered with the valid certificate. So that was even more interesting, how the attackers managed to not only compromise the delivery update site of the updates, but also sign the binaries with the valid certificate. And even to this day, there are not too many details about how it was possible to compromise their delivery network. But interesting thing is that even SolarWinds CEO blamed an intern on setting up a very weak password that you see on this slide to their FTP site that was pushing the updates. Obviously, well, lame explanation for the bad security practices that the company was doing all along the way. In the recent news, there is also more information about the breach being actually possible thanks to breaching the continuous integration pipeline and letting the attackers modify the Orion software update packages on the fly when they were actually built in their continuous integration system. So the question really is how we could prevent such attacks, whether this attack and similar attacks that we'll perhaps see in the future can be prevented. And one of the ideas that I would like to focus on in this presentation are war games. So more specifically, cybersecurity or information security war games. I know a lot of practitioners in information security word don't like this word cyber, but even in the industry, it's, I think, widely utilized. And for instance, in this United States Department for Homeland Security report, they actually prepared quite a thorough report on cyber wargaming back in August 2018. And this document explains in quite a few, quite detailed scenarios that you can utilize for preparing war games in more of a corporate company environment, how to organize them effectively, and they also give a couple of ideas about the tools that you can utilize. The sort of easiest way to start with are tabletop scenarios. They're also mentioned in this report. And so these are typically simulations that you don't need much to start with. You just need to gather people around the table and discuss certain topics that you can evaluate whether you're prepared against them or not. If you lack inspiration for the scenarios, there is actually a Twitter feed aptly named Bad Things Daily that basically each day or quite often recently, I think when they started it was every day, but right now they are the updates are less frequent. they give you an idea of certain things that then happen. Obviously, these incidents are fictional, but as you'll see, they are quite realistic in the sense that there is, for instance, this incident that is very similar to what happened, the incident that they mentioned there. Obviously, after it happened, but they mentioned that the incident related to supply chain compromise, that you can also see whether you're prepared against that or not. So how to organize the tabletop scenarios exercise in your company? First of all, invite all the stakeholders to the table. So you can start with technical people. So from your department, if you're in an engineering department, it could be part of your IT staff, people who are responsible for your networks, for your laptops, for all the technical equipment that you have and all the software. They could be responsible for actually writing the software, people related to operations and so on. There may be also non-technical people that you would like to involve if you're trying to see whether your company is prepared on a really higher level for such incidents. Obviously, this will be more pertaining the bigger scale incidents rather than some smaller scale incidents that may happen as well, that you should also be prepared against. So you can think about people from such departments as legal, public relations, or finance. They may also come useful, especially when it comes to this quite big scenarios. Pick a scenario and role play it. So go around the table, see how each of the parties would respond, what their responsibility would be in handling a part of the incident, and also try to focus on identifying the gaps and documenting them. And once you identify these gaps, you prepare the response for these things that you were not thinking before about, create a runbook. So basically a technical description of each step, how you would go, sort of instructions that you may go through when this accident actually or something similar would happen. So let's see how it works in the practice. So let's take this example kind of incident we have seen on this earlier Twitter feed, Bad Things Daily. It also corresponds actually to the SolarWinds hack to a certain extent. So let's see how different parties could go around the table about this incident. So in a very short summary, obviously, each participant could raise such actions and mitigation. So IT department, they will definitely focus on stopping the bleeding. So in this case, perhaps even shutting down some servers, uninstalling the malicious binary, wiping the machines if they're already found infected. So they're potentially the first responders. Our PR staff, in the meantime, they may focus on preparing and issuing the statement to the press, well, any social feeds as well that they operate, to just make sure that, well, they're the first one to notify rather than someone learning from some third party about the incident that happened. Our software development department, well, they could evaluate possible alternative vendors. They can focus on sort of long-term prevention to this incident. Our legal department, perhaps they would need to find out about legal repercussions of such incident, whether there was some personal data that was affected. We obviously need to follow in Europe to the GDPR regulations, and as such, there may be some legal repercussions of hack that happened. And our finance department, so more on a taking the look from perspective of the perhaps United States companies. Maybe they need to issue some Securities and Exchange Commission filings, notifying them about what happened, because obviously if they're a publicly listed company, that may affect the stock, and people would need to be notified about it. So this is in principle how we can go about tabletop scenario in our company. So more on the runbooks. These are, as mentioned earlier, sort of set of instructions that you may want to build as a result of the tabletop scenario, to have such instructions in case exactly this or more probable something similar to this incident happens. So you need to try to identify these common scenarios when building the runbooks. And I will show some examples on a next slide. What are the most typical scenarios? So this known knowns, if you would like to classify that. They need to be repetitive. So you need to be able to repeat them as much as possible. You need to focus on also how fast you can repeat this set of instructions. Obviously, in the faster you can do it, the better, because there is this there is definitely a lot of time pressure when actual incident happens and a lot of room for mistakes. So you need to be rather well trained to respond to such incidents. And continuous improvements is something you need to do after running each exercise, and also when the actual incident happens to see how well you were prepared against the incident. And this is sort of the idea how you can approach responding to unknown unknowns as well, because whereas obviously it will be really hard to predict exactly what may happen, if you have similar set of instructions when something unexpected happens, you can build on top of that. So you can just start running what you were doing in the past to similar kind of incident and trying to see whether it will work or not. So perhaps something, if you'd like to entertain this parable to the vaccinations, right? So we haven't got the vaccine against COVID-19 last year. They started developing it, but we knew that the vaccinations more or less are working, right? So we just jump on a similar idea. Hey, let's create a vaccine against this virus, and perhaps it will work, right? We know from the past that similar type of vaccinations work. So similarly here, you don't need to necessarily build all of the runbooks that will cover all different possible scenarios, but you can focus on the scenarios that you know, and based on that, you can just repeat the set of actions that you were doing in the past to similar type of incidents. All right, so what are these incidents that are actually very common when it comes to information security and you may would like to focus on? So just a couple of examples here, like stolen laptop. So how you would respond if one of your employees got their laptop stolen when they were commuting to the office. I guess not something that people do very often right now, but even outside when they're working from home, they perhaps have their laptop with them when they go shopping and so on, when they move from place to place, and it may get stolen while they're moving, or even perhaps maybe stolen from their home. What you would do when you discover that one of your employees got compromised password, or even worse, something like happened in the SolarWinds incident. Some of your passwords for the infrastructure, like FTP servers or other type of infrastructure parts, are compromised. What you would do when malware infection is identified in one of your machines, or for instance, in your cloud environment, how you would respond to that. And very common scenarios, especially for big companies, are phishing attempts, perhaps less targeted or even more targeted when there is this spear phishing campaign run against one of your say board members, or even specific employees that have access to key infrastructure. So think about these scenarios, how you can respond to them. And based on top of that, you can obviously start to think about some other scenarios that may happen. And obviously, the more runbooks you create, you sort of minimize the space that is unknown to you. And even when unknown things are happening, it may be easier for you to respond to them because you already know a set of instructions that you can sort of build on top of the unknown parts. If you're searching for an inspiration, AWS actually provides in their documentation for the security incident response guide example runbook with different parts. So definitely something that you can use as a scaffolding to prepare your own runbooks, and based on that, on top of them, also build the sort of more robust runbooks for different scenarios that will happen, that could potentially happen in your environment. All right. And apart from the tabletop scenarios and runbooks, what else we can do when it comes to wargaming and getting ready for the unexpected? Something that is perhaps more realistic or even close to reality are security incident simulations. There are a couple of tools also mentioned in the Department of Homeland Security report that you can utilize, or perhaps also search. There are many other vendors as well. And obviously, I don't want this to be sort of any kind of vendor endorsement. I'm just giving them as an example of things that you can utilize in your environment. So one such tool is CyberGym. It's actually Israeli company that is being used to facilitate tabletop exercises in some of the European and United Kingdom financial institutions, and it is predominantly a training platform. So they also have this training modules there, but apart from that, they also have a hands-on application to simulate cyber defense and various attack scenarios. So some of them are very tailored to specific company needs. They also incorporate these various approaches that we've seen when testing security. So this sort of approach of red team, blue team, management team, white team. So red team is typically the attackers team. The blue team is the ones who are defending, so the bad guys, good guys. And there is this white team, so sort of just observers, management team, who are there to see how things are actually rolling out throughout the exercise. And they are perhaps also there to manage the whole scenario. So I think their offering is very interesting. They also provide, for instance, this virtual cloud arena. So perhaps if you have on-premise systems, you can also find some of the solutions for yourself. If you utilize more of a cloud systems, they also have specific virtual gyms for that as well. Another interesting tool may be SimSpace. This is actually a sort of commercialized tool that was being used by the already in the past to extend the government-funded technologies for the cyber security testing. And it includes a certain traffic patterns, both benign and attack traffic simulations. So thanks to that, you can start testing your tools that you're using to detect certain weird traffic patterns, certain weird scenarios, and also how you can respond to that and how you can test your automated responses to certain attack patterns. So also testing not only the responses, but perhaps also testing the detection of certain attack types and certain things that could occur inside your network. So what is really nice about the simulation tools is that they are sort of rolling out these scenarios in a real time. So once you're launching them, you can see how your responses are rolling out in the real time, how different teams are responding, how your tools are responding when it comes to detecting certain type of patterns and so on. There is obviously certain limitations to this type of simulations. You cannot really simulate all of the different traffic patterns, and definitely this unexpected traffic patterns, perhaps they will be not as popular there. But as we've seen in the past, even these unexpected things are sometimes built on top of the smaller things, like say compromised password or certain traffic patterns, like some malicious logging from weird IP address to your continuous integration pipeline. So such traffic patterns perhaps could be also simulated there, and you could use these tools to identify them. Apart from the simulations, perhaps a little less strict approach, but also serious, could be a way to gamify the incident response and actually how you how you train or simulate the different incident response scenarios. So first one is a game that was created based on the Lockheed Martin famous kill chain attack lifecycle. So the idea here is that on this board that you see on the slide, you can try to role play different attacks, and each player can role play the sort of attack on different stages of the kill chain and see how they can actually exploit and perform a successful attack. So obviously something interesting. It was prepared for DEFCON 24, as far as I saw in their GitHub repository. So this is all actually free. You can download it, go to their GitHub page, download it from the repository, and play it on your own. So something that definitely you can utilize to popularize such approach, and also perhaps learn about different type of attacks and scenarios that could occur in your environment. The other one, Backdoors and Breaches, it's an incident response card game. So this is a deck of 52 unique cards that is on each card presenting a different type of attack, different types of detections that are utilized to detect such an attack, and different type of tools that you can utilize to detect it as well. What is very interesting about this game is you can buy it as like real card game with a card deck and so on, but you can also play it virtually on Discord. So they have their own Discord channel where they provide instructions how to play it online as well. So very interesting, and I think a lot of fun, not only playing it as a sort of serious game, but also just to learn about this different type of attacks and scenarios that can occur. All right, so summarizing, the really interesting approach in perhaps trying to pull the future and predict the unexpected are the war games. They are things that can make you put you in this mindset of thinking about the unexpected things that may happen. This is not a new thing. They were used not only in terms of information security incidents, but also in terms of even things like business planning, financial planning, and so on. Also, actually, where the name is coming from to plan actual wars, and so on in the past. One of the aspects of them that is falling into this war games category, but really something that you can start very easily on, are tabletop scenarios. So just a scenario that you run together with your team, or perhaps even involve other stakeholders from your company to run it together with them, and see how well you're prepared against this known scenarios. And also on top of that, build a certain set of runbooks that may get you better prepared for the future incidents and the ones that you don't know, by utilizing the concepts that you already see in the past. And sort of two other approaches based more on trying to gamify, so to speak, the approach, are simulations. So the type of tools that are simulating certain attack patterns or certain incidents that may occur in your infrastructure. Also, this serious or not so serious, sometimes card games that you may utilize to play together with your team, just as a sort of learning exercise, but also as a sort of serious game exercise where you role play through them some of the scenarios that may actually occur in your infrastructure. So that's it from me. Thanks a lot for listening. And obviously, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them for you.